Buddy and I spoke extensively on this matter. Uh, the recording device is not held in a tripod, but it's using the left effector. So be wary of the image fluctuation. However, these listening should be considered listenings just such, placing the device in one's pocket or somewhere else that perhaps does not hinder them from carrying on other activities, more as a acoustical company. In that way, it's listened to, and then these matters are not so mattering. However, our buddy and I spoke extensively on the matter of the New Jerusalem, false prophets, the marking of the beast. I mean, it was a thrill for me to have this conversation. For one, it was extemporaneous, but also a related to the most recently published most recently published unit of content about segregation that has that feature of it where it speaks on segregation, the wheat from the chaff and the wheats and well from the thorns. It along the same lines. I mean, this is just the synchronicity that goes on, but we spoke about these things with the mark of the beast and the mark of the beast and how that's the separation and how it relates to men's apocalyptic, nervous, imaginary, and fantasizing. But these things are not related to the truth of reality. I mean, in my position, what I maintain was the world is indifferent and it's practical. And the New Jerusalem and the rethinking of the world, reconsideration of it, that, and then the formulation of that in a mature, coexistence, cohabitational, as a mutual cohabitational agreement. All these things are just next to or following or are the result of this line of thinking. I mean, what are false prophets if they're not carrying out a game of nature? I mean, we ended on self-God in the previous video, and what a way to have it. I mean, it's from one of the most recent Dream products, and that's how it was able to be formulated, and how it was able to be produced, designed, and its meaning. It's directed to the individual and how they can consider themselves mature in their own sense, meaning they're able to have a set of rules to govern their activity and they stick to these rules. Self-control is critical. It's a critical feature included in the attributes of the spirit. I mean, love is kind, patient. Love does not envy you. I mean, these are just going down the line of authentic, actualized individual, but not to relate solely to that point. And what revelation means when it says you work out your own salvation, and it is within your own hands, or your enlightenment is from your own hands, or any of these other ways of stating the fact that man is in control of himself. He's a sculptor and he has a sculpture and he's performing on it, and the way he performs on it, his interests and temperaments and tendencies are not decided by him. Relating still to existence, to speaking of the world and such. I mean, think commonly exactly how far this video gone, or just to play it for the next human along the lines of the street. They don't immediately start to play ping pong with the idea, and then I think of the humans as being ignorant of it, being ignorant of their rights, being ignorant of their own birthright. But this isn't bliss, it's shameful. It's seeing man play within the mud of the world where he has the stars and he has the galaxies awaiting him. That's just the direction to head in. It's not a case of subjectivity when human standards and standards of living are brought into consideration. So that's another way, another impetus for this movement forward. It's no other way to continue. I mean, you're giving a world for a portion, you're giving a world for a time, for a period, and it's yours to act upon, do upon, tweak, modify, edify, heal. It's yours to recognize. Attention is an act of perception. perception, then it's an act of creation. How is the world being created, and how can this news be brought to public attention to gain, obtain, to receive critical mass, to have critical mass. In that way, it's able to do work, greater works, important works, and in man, through man, to man. This is the way, and then that's eschatology is over there, and there's telos, and there's direction. How can there be direction if you're steered by the wind, you're meandering? Where you end up is no work of anything else but the conditions, the emergence of the initial conditions, the emergence post-initial condition. And that meandering brings man at least where he's able to stop in his tracks and start to ask course related question. Where am I headed? Where am I going? Where am I? What am I to do? A major part of what you are to do comes from the outside, not much from the inside. That's not end of the sentence. And also, it is made of intertextualization. This is how we organize the world imaginatively. How we imagine the world, how we come across it when we think about it. And it's created inside the head, after all. It's created in the part of the mind where ideas are sought. And notice the trait of the human is to look up to the sky or close your eye when you're trying to revive a thought, revive a line, like an assembly line, an organizing line of thought. Recognize that sentence from the title of the recent video, and as all the thoughts share their context, it's able to relate to it in that way. Organize our thinking unconsciously, but we can get a feel of it, almost like almost like an aftertaste, but a reverberation of it, and that the thought happens, the thought appears to consciousness, and consciousness deduces from its contents its source. You think, oh, this is how we connect words, and this is a pattern that shows up because itself, the unconscious, is a pattern producing engine, and it conserves behavior. When man applies his agency automatically out of instinct, not out of introspection or examination. Beliefs already taking on their effects in situations that relates to their doctrine on this line. And how does the world end? What does it mean in that it ends? For one, that is eschatology, but I believe eschatology and a stage transition. That's what it is. That the game hasn't started yet. It managed to live as if the revelation already happened. It does so by articulating the mystery. Mystery is made of questions, and he lives this way because that's after it. Because after this, he starts to live this. He started to live this way, and he really begins to play the game. The game does not start until he can get his act together, and he can love his brother as himself, and he can spend 70 years in the enterprise and under a different reputation, not his current historical reputation, not his even daily expressions of this reputation. He's prone to provocation for one. How common is this dispute? Side of the highway, like electrons along a transit way, bombarding, shoving each other. These are actions that are not fitted for him. Until he can get on the same page about these matters, then the game does not begin. The game doesn't start until these things are. And we're headed for them. We're heading to them. We're trying to make them be. That's why such things are going on. It's just left now to the human to match and respond and begin to produce or what is it? It's repercussions. What are these repercussions? How do you try to talk about man? How do you try to bring what are you talking about out? I mean, why ask these questions being this far down the line, down the journey? These are questions perhaps you asked before, but no. But the part of the world that can be the part of the world that's awaiting to be, is calling to be, is trying to get tagged into the game, and this is a response to it. This is for it, and it's mostly in the imagination. It's mostly in the imagination, the result of its currency. But when its currency becomes expressed in shared reality, then it really takes some color and flesh. And that's what it's waiting for. It's black and white at the moment, but it takes high resolution and becomes much more potent when it's expressed in shared reality. You see it in congregations, and you see it in members of a community's potential to one another. I mean, you can't get away from this action. You can't get away from this, from low consciousness activity that takes over the world. All roads lead here. There is only one alleyway to speaking and dealing with humans, because it's humans first. You're a human being first before you're anything else. And just the pattern that we don't make these arrangements, and we'll have to realize them later, tells we are born on shaky grounds, and to create stability, it's an act. It's a cumulative action. It's a cumulative activity. You're trying to recreate, trying to amend, trying to resolve. We're trying to recreate. Well, I mean, thinking about it as an archivist, the world was too much to know all that is to be known. I mean, there are things that are known in the world. Those are things that are known to members of the worldly enterprise. And then there are things that are known only on the personal scale and perhaps cultural scale. But just there are things that are known, period, and there's a fraction. Because the more one knows, the more they realize that little to know. Because the broader the radius of the illumination caused by the bonfire, the greater the space exposed as darkness. So you see more darkness because you have more light to. I mean, that's a fundamental character of how humans are operating. If you were like to teleport from just the realm of thinking abstractly about the world, add that to it, and then this goes on. He becomes to know more, and he becomes to make more, and he tries to make more of himself. He tries to recreate the world accordingly, and recreating the world accordingly just exposes even more of the way it has been made in accordingly. Now there is the impetus, but now there's the articulation. It's a potent one. Think about it from the beginning of the world, just the things that are known, and how to get to it, how to get to them, and how to circumscribe them. Trying to now condense it in an explanation. I mean, this explanation is composed of all elements of nature, included in everything else. From enriching uranium to the splitting of the Red Sea, and what voodoo is. I mean, all these things are things about the world. They're enumerated on an ontological litany, along in the ontological litany of collectible entities. So there it happens. Because these things are such, they have to be considered, and that's what it's composed of. That's what's included in it. It's an element of it, and trying to get it down and condense it into a way of speaking, a way of talking, and hoping there's someone out there that radiates with it. I mean, much interest, much interest will be directed to this end, is directed to this end, and everything else that goes along with trying to find, and without being satisfied with the way things are completely. Uh, and that's how well, there's no other way to consider it but emphatic, and that's how emphatic it is. It just is the fact that the world is such. It just is that the world is able to be, and how dreamy it is, and how flimsily dreamy it is. That surely one is a part of the grand scheme. One is in participation. I mean, what a statement. That's the statement that brings it home. That's the statement that cures. It takes part of the part it takes care of, and at least an apple a day keeps the doctors away. But it doesn't change the fact that one is in participation, and it has this reflectory effect on the thinker. What does that mean to be in participation? Along with everything else that goes along with it. Forget the realm of activism of creating Eden, but also contemplatively. And then, what are the implicatures of that statement? Perhaps not calling it an axiom, but it is such because one can empirically measure their existence, and along with it is direct realism, the felt presence of immediate, direct, realistic experience. That felt presence bring under the formality of things that are actually becoming into actual occasions, and omitting and inviting certain states of actual occasion creates the chain of propagation that measures and defines a given character, and this is how they interact with the world. I mean, their actions are very retrogressively deducible into comprehension, because they have, of course, their influences vary, but they do have their influences sectionalized, and in that way, it's organized. It's organized and is manageable for the thinker. So in this way, we're trying to categorize the world into what it is to be, and everything else that goes along with it, and trying to obviously resonate in this area as long as one can. Of course, servicing man, not taking their things or harming them, but of course, in the void that's left, excluding those things that do not occur, then they're filled with events, and they're filled with moments in them, one of which is addressing the matter, what lays in the seams. There's color and what are called colors, and those are the limits of forms and figures, and then there are the rest of the world under blue sky, and under and in the life world. These are the things that lay beyond the scene, each for their own in their respective ecosystems. From there, I mean, it's taking on to more what would just be called existential matters, and splitting that into, and what will be, and looking forward to this opportunity, diagrammatic distinction tree between the different disciplines of the world, from geology to botany to meteorology to astronomy to oceanography to chemistry and mathematics and to physics and to engineering. I mean, just connect the dots between the discipline, because the disciplines are a mirror. They're a mirror of the world. They are inquiring, deciphering, and decoding. That is it. They're deciphering, inquiring into, and decoding. That's the mirror, and that's what these disciplines are responsible for, and that's what they are. And they're hoping to turn the image inside out. In that way, most of its gears and figures can be played with to create more gears and features, and then that expands the domain of those who are inquirers or lovers of wisdom into at least something deeply, or into many things. But in here, as a cosmopolitan polymath, it is into many things. and looking forward to that distinction or discrimination between the scientific disciplines of the world and how it aids natural process philosophy or growth. I mean, that's what it's going after. I'm trying to create something here. Trying to create something that is meaningful and practical, create something that is movable and operative and helpful, and all these things, and create them sensibly, understandably. Oh, still along the lines of reaching public evaluation. Consider the ideas in the privacy of your own armchair, and then get back in your comment section how conveniently interchange has been organized to allow messages as such to hopefully reach your unknown public, uh, and um, public recipient, because this is a cast. It has no idea the identity of the creature that's only going to latch to this bait, but it knows is in the right zone. And you're speaking with the sapiens left-handed or far-sighted. Mix for a listener, a mix for interrogator, a mix for a recipient, and that's the feeling, and that's the way belief is carried on and belief is made. So there has it, there is it, and what will be of it, what will become of it, these are all things that will be spoken on now and then, other time. We're just taking it to be what you can, or taking it to be important, or taking it to be a thing worth doing, a thing worth thinking about, a thing worth acting on, in the loudest possible sense that it becomes known that it's tantamount to a blind sight. It's comparable to a blind sight, because one goes the one goes through existence, never finding out there's another way to consider it, and there's another way one could have changed their history. I mean, many are trying to, or hoping to change the history, and I believe a major part of that is removing the signals from the outside. If they are not made on the outside, they're really not considered in the mind. They aim to expose themselves long ago by saying that if it's out of sight, it's out of mind, and the things that are out of sight are brought into sight and taken out of sight by those who are responsible for governing us. I mean, these things can be dealt with, and there are practical change that can be made. If man intentionally initiates himself into this belief that, oh well, if we organize ourselves, where I could leave $1 million in a public area and could be left there like it was one of the least valuable gemstones, and because that is the same attitude that's sticking to it. If you're one betting and risking your life to compare to a detritus of his economic flourish or blossoming, and he has a different history attached to him. I mean, man is taken for a ride in his being his pickpocket here, but he does not view things from context. His memory too does not lie. He does not have the best attention span, so when taking things from him is that he forgets. And what is truly present here 25 years into the 21st century is that men sticking for subscriptions now. So his bag of his repository of his income also have automatic suction valves that are attached to it, that immediately as he's walking as a cog, it's all electrically synchronized. He deposits and it deducts, and he does this repeatedly for 70 years of his life, and he gets a thing or two afterward with the perks that come along with his profession. So he's being taken for a ride, but he does it with a smile, because perhaps he's sedated by the way the world is organized around him. I believe he thinks that he's getting the full signal that he's living, so he does not interrogate his life to be something else, something otherwise, I believe exactly his case when he's taking for a ride here. And those are really at the tail end of that are those who are benefiting from the electrical organization. That's also, if you're on the map, imagine it as blocks and saying, okay, where it is staying, if they're speaking on deportation, imagine them, these are cells now, and these are the products of stardust. So you can speak of them as at least as a biological or chemical defense. That's saying this is the side of the cell that is really flourishing. We are in the bone, and we would not allow others who are not comparable to us to join in our grand community, for we have done good work and we're really here at the tail end of human existence. And then you can see them as all eyes attracted towards those that are really there. If you take on the sky view of Los Angeles and Las Vegas and New York, you can see and visually visually manifested in that image is the light. This is where the light is. Everywhere is darkness. So like moths to a flame, they aggregate there. But in there also are these chemical defenses. This is a reflection of human belief now to say, oh no, we are nationalist or something else. They're saying we're not willing for others to come into the light. We do not want the others out. We're not into sharing. This is the part, the one in the pin now in the crib. If you're comparing him as Babe sitting before the fact, that is scheming, clever, somehow has a affinity for the job to get it done. They're the system thinkers, and then now to not share the idea or be very parsimonious with it, and so of course, because these things are advantage, the light is advantage. They still have the famine mentalities, the humans. They believe there's not enough to go around. Obviously there's enough to go around, so much enough to go around to get the story exactly as it should be told. And it's that human now in search to spread out his secrets. I mean, the secrets are already out there, to understand everything that goes on in the world as close as one could without actually breaking some confidentiality agreement, but all where the public information lies in the noon. In the noon, one is able to go on and grab details about it and create it anywhere on the world, any other place on the world. They are able to copy and paste these because they are copies and they are paste. They have been copied and they have been pasted. Right? Once before there wasn't, and now there is. I mean, you can do this continuously. But he still believes his with famine mindset. There is not enough to go around. There is enough to go around. He can change these things. And it's where it started from. We're speaking on the conversation as had with a fellow that coincidentally was thinking along the same line. So segregating the wheat from the chaff, and then bringing just a tiny bit, because it's being taken astray here in other places where it's present. It's just bring a tiny bit of modernity into remote areas and create Eden zones. And these places can take on and be an emblem and be an exemplar to prove an equation that these things are possible. These are limitations that are made to man that are disempowering. At least that's our belief. To what is the human potential. We're human first, and with that human capacity, we can be self-God. I mean, first on we become self-controlled before we talk about getting our free will, and then we believe that we can be self-God, self-guided. That's ultimately it, and live in communities that all share the guidelines for harmonious living. I mean, these are just basic rules to live with humans, knowing what their kinks, their quirks, and idiosyncrasies, and their temperament and their ego, and dealing with them, knowing those facts. I mean, incorporating those facts. I mean, then that's just it. And you ruffle fewest feathers, and the less feathers that are ruffled, the better. Thing about it as a community, you want these things out of pocket in different places. This is where it's at. I mean, that's the idea. If you wish to join in with it, instead of being part of Auschwitz, you can go and live with the orangutan, and now you can feel a different way of being a human. Grab a torp, throw it over a tree, and then build yourself a nest for the night and see how that's like. I mean, there are multiple ways to be more than. Now that you crack the code, you can go and be creative as long as you wish. You only are reaching this line. I mean, in places of isolation, there's just less temptation for certain courses of occasion, so you just omit great amount of actual occasions. I mean, being with the animals are always on the correct end of exerting their agency correctly. I mean, it only gets to the point where it has to, when it is premeditated, that's where it's susceptible to error. But in most cases, if you, depending on the surrounding, that increasingly, that increases the probability of one state and decreases the probability of others. I mean, this is just basic units of conception, and you can course through them section by section and catalog them, and then and almost and reflecting it almost to the guidance board that is a mosaic of little conceptual cells that creates the dynamic interplay, because there is different attempts of eventing from moment to moment. Just considering what location in the sky the sun is on its course, on its course. And then certain things are more likely or less likely. It's syncopated to a rhythm there. Rhythmic is rhythmic, and then it's rhythmic. And then that's another wave to rip out of it, to start to think along these lines and talk about certain things like this, and hoping that others can resonate with it out there. And oh, how much that is to bet on, because I believe firmly that you're forgetting something on this Easter egg hunt, and there it is. Subject worth discussing. What else are you to do with your time? It's a matter of time. It's a matter of time, because it's timed. How? Well, then along these lines, we can continue. So we can perhaps discontinue the monologue here, because I'm believing still that each moment of one of these units of our publishing content here has its own intrinsic set of combination of articulatory artillery. So in other moments, do not be robbed of the future. One should just continue on to get the sensation of the wells, let's say, lack of replenishment, or the well's emptiness. So then the monologue should discontinue.